some tend to see it as raw as this.
Good evening and welcome.
So that was a great little insight into the history of this case, and it gives me an opportunity now to jump in and talk to our great guests who are joining me today. I have Philip Dube. He's the deputy public defender in L.A., and I want to give a little disclaimer there. He's joining us today in his private capacity, not on behalf of the public defender's office. That's important to know. And also Jim DeSimone. He is a civil rights attorney, and he is also joining us today to talk about this case and other things on the docket today. Philip, I am going to go with you first. What do you think about this case? This is a largely circumstantial case for the prosecution. What do you think they have to prove in terms of the evidence to connect those dots and make their case before this jury?
Well, first of all, they have to establish quantitatively that there is enough blood to say that a homicide occurred. The mere fact of a drop of blood, if I recall correctly from one of the experts who testified that one drop of blood can show up in a luminol test, no matter how much you dilute it. So the fact that a speck or a drop of blood was found does not prove a homicide. The luminol test does not necessarily prove the quantity, and it certainly does not prove when it was deposited. So from that standpoint, they're going to have a problem. What I'm anxious to see, though, is what the cadaver dogs tell. It's very, very possible that the cadaver dogs are not alerting to the young man, to the kid. It's very possible that there was something else. It could have been an animal of sorts. It could have been anything else that this dog is picking up on. I think this case also rises and falls on jury selection. You have a defendant who has a weird, kinky fetish. Some people are, for lack of a better term, put off by that. So you need an open-minded jury who won't convict based on a freaky fetish.
Right, and you know, we talk about the cadaver dogs and the way this body was found up on this mountain in a rural area, and the defense is going with a theory here that it wasn't even a human being who may have been behind this death, and has argued, at least in opening statements, that it could have been a mountain lion or a bear. But we also know that there's some forensic evidence here in this case where there are two holes in Dylan Redwine's skull, which are more consistent, if you will, at least the prosecution theory, with a knife. Now, what do you think about the defense theory, and is it plausible, and what are they going to have to do in order to make this jury buy that theory?
Well, first of all, it is very plausible that an animal out there in the wild with some type of fangs punctured the kid's skull, and that could have been the demise, or it could have been something that occurred after the kid's demise. But if I also recall correctly from the evidence, the criminalists found some type of blood underneath the carpeting in the home, which I think is very helpful to the defense, because it's my understanding that if the blood came from the boy, there would be some evidence that that carpet had been replaced or that there was some patchwork of carpeting, and it would be inexplicable as to how blood got underneath that carpeting.
So we're going to take a quick break right now, but stick with us. When we come back, we'll be looking back more into the Corey Redwine case as they take a break live in court.